Peter Schiff is back on the air.
We are back. This is Peter Schiff here at SchiffRadio.com, speaking with Steve Forbes, former presidential candidate and chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media. Welcome back, Steve. I want to talk a little bit about the front runner, Mitt Romney. I mean, first of all,
I was going to say, who is it today?
Well, I mean, one thing that you and Mitt Romney have in common is you were lucky enough to be born into affluent parents. Does it seem to you that Mitt Romney seems to be ashamed of that and tries to run away from the fact that his parents were wealthy? I mean, it seems to me that there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if your parents worked hard and were successful, it's their right to leave a better future to their children, leave them a business, leave them money. Should he be more defending that aspect of his life?
Yes, and by reacting the way he has, even though, as we pointed out, he's been at this for 5 years trying to become president, that he is so uncertain, hesitating, defensive when things like his wealth comes up, when things like Bain Capital or his income taxes come up. People feel that, yes, he must have his activities must have been less than wholesome, which is why he feels guilty about it. Whereas if he appeared to be confident that he believed in the system, could defend the system, and didn't hesitate, as Gingrich didn't hesitate, to take you on if you were going to attack it, then I think people would say, okay, this is a strong leader who knows himself, knows the system, and maybe get this country back on track again.
Yeah, one thing, though, that does bother me economically, too, about Mitt Romney is his calls for protectionist tariffs on American citizens who want to buy Chinese products. I mean, that seems to me like a very dangerous road to go down, to be bashing China and calling for huge tariffs on Chinese goods.
Well, and what he should be called on is tariff is another word for tax. Mm-hmm. So a 25% tariff is a 25% sales tax. Hello.
Yes.
And we all know we have real problems with the Chinese on intellectual property rights being stolen, on internal trade barriers, much more difficult to do business within China. Those are legitimate issues to be bringing up and discussing and hitting hard on. But this currency thing, it's like New York saying New Jersey has an unfair advantage. The dollar's the same in New York as it is in New Jersey. We have to devalue. Mm-hmm. No.
Yeah, and also
we tried that in the 70s, it did not have a happy ending.
And also, he describes it as a tax on China. China doesn't pay the tax. Americans pay the tax when they buy Chinese products.
Exactly. China's not a company. It's individuals trading with individuals here.
Yes, and as in the tax doesn't go to China. They don't send the money in. It's in the price of the goods, and it affects Americans. So if he's saying I want to reduce taxes for Americans, most Americans buy a lot of Chinese products. Now, it would be better if they bought more products that were made in America. So why doesn't he discuss what is all the things that the U.S. government is doing to force jobs to China that undermines our productivity so that we can't produce these products cost effectively, and so they end up being produced in China instead?
Exactly. In last night's debate, they brought up the question, Apple employs 500,000 people overseas, or their contractors, versus 40,000 in the U.S., a mere 40,000 in the U.S., that should have been an opening to say, for those 40,000 jobs, many of them, most of them are very high-skilled, high-paid jobs, thank you very much. And what they've done for business and individuals is huge, in the hundreds of billions of value. And in terms of Apple expanding here, have a hospitable environment, like lowering taxes and jobs. In that book, biography by Walter Isaacson, points out that Jobs told President Obama why he says it's amazing. I find it easier to build a plant in China than I do in the U.S. Can't you change that?
Yeah, there are millions and millions of unemployed Americans that could do the jobs that the Chinese are doing if the government got out of the way and let it happen. If we had lower taxes, if we had more capital, if we didn't have things like the minimum wage law, if we didn't have a lot of the licensing laws that are there, if we didn't have the extended unemployment benefits, if we weren't spending so much money sending our kids to universities and loading them up with debt, if they can get jobs and get on-the-job training from companies that can hire them without being afraid of being sued, we would have all sorts of opportunities for Americans to produce these products.
Exactly. And if we want to avoid the fate of Western Europe, we're going to have to open up this economy again. As you know, in the early 80s, we were on our way to becoming Western Europe. We made substantial changes, and we surged ahead. Amazingly, for 20 years, we grew at 70% faster rate than Western Europe, even though their economies individually were far smaller than ours. It's an amazing performance.
Yep, and it's unfortunate that the electorate wasn't a little bit smarter back when you ran, because maybe if you had become president, we wouldn't be in quite so much trouble as we are today. But as I said earlier in the show, I think one person who shares our economic vision, who is out there, is Ron Paul. And maybe, and I think, would you be able to agree with me on this, if we can get Ron Paul to maybe clarify his foreign policy in such a way that would assure people like you that he would neutralize terrorist threats, that he's not simply going to wait for a disaster to react, that he will use the resources and the intelligence of the United States to keep Americans safe and to prevent acts of terrorism from being committed on our soil, that he wouldn't completely gut our Defense Department. Could you endorse him?
I would certainly take another look, but in the meantime, if I were another candidate, I wouldn't hesitate to say that when I took the oath of office, Bernanke out, Paul in.
Oh, for Fed chairman?
Yeah. He would be the one guy who would go on a job to eliminate it.
Well, that's what we need. Everybody's always asked me, if you would take a cabinet position just long enough to shut it down. That's what I would want to do, if you could get to the inside and just try to dismantle it and send out the pink slips, which is why, sometimes they attack, like when Newt Gingrich attacks Mitt Romney for firing people. I want a president who knows how to fire people, because that's what you could do. Do you want a president to hire people? That means we have to pay their salary. I want a president who's very good at firing people, thank you, because we have too many people working for the federal government.
Well, and the thing is, it means more resources for the American people, which means more prosperity. I mean, who can what I think the Republicans are just beginning to glom onto is that people create resources, not bureaucrats.
No, all they do is redistribute the resources and do it in a less than efficient manner so that everybody suffers. Whatever money the government spends is money the private sector can't invest. Every job the government creates destroys a private sector job, and the problem is the private sector jobs produce things that we want. The government sector jobs produce nothing that we want. In fact, they get in the way of the production of the things that we want.
Yeah, they just don't redistribute. They hurt the creation of things. And the nice thing about markets is you don't produce what people want, meet the needs and wants of other people.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, Steve,
you fail upward.
The Democrats, though, they secretly want that. They don't want people to succeed. They want them dependent so they can offer them a handout to get their vote. But, hey, thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate you coming on my show. Good luck with Forbes, and we will be back. We got another full hour of the Peter Schiff Show, so stick around. We got plenty of calls. We'll get to them when the show returns.
The Peter Schiff Show.